Hey everyone, Dan here. We are after market close on Thursday, July 22nd. We're going to take our daily look at Clover Health. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These should not be construed as and are not intended to be trading or investment advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, come to your own conclusions, and make your own decisions based on that information. All right, so CLOV fell back a bit today after a pretty solid rally yesterday, including in the after hours. As we pointed out in yesterday's video, we had this, where does this sit now? Is it somewhere around here? But the insider buying that was taking place was driving this in the aftermarket hours yesterday. And, that sort of like kept some of the momentum going. But basically, all good things, I don't want to say all good things come to an end because I don't think that CLOV is coming to an end. I'm pretty bullish on it in the longer term. But all good things in the stock market at least take a breath. So just keep that in mind. I don't know if these are just a few green days in a vast sea of selling off. And so I don't want to overstate this in any way, shape, or form. But, to the extent to which we do have the opportunity to reverse trend here, there are going to be days that we pull back a little bit as a response to, several uptrending days in a row. And that will be, to me, actually a sign of a really meaningful recovery, sort of like a better, to me, it's a better situation to be in rather than this like sudden surge and run up toward $30 and then like just as chaotic of a surge, a reverse surge and pullback, dropping us down further than where we were before we made the run up to $30. So that is sort of like the chaos that I'm hoping I don't see. And if you want to go back to my Clover price targets video, I talk there about sort of like the trend and the chart and where I would put price targets based on that information. And then I talk about the competitive landscape and sort of some of the closest competitors in the public market to CLOV and, where I would put Clover's market cap and therefore price target in the coming years. And so, again, those are all bullish. So to me, I think there's a case here, but I would like to see a nicer sort of, stair step kind of pattern of a run up versus something chaotic that looks like a surgical needle. I know some folks have called it a middle finger pattern as it evolves. But anyway, looking at today, let's do basically just sort of like a recap of where we are in the vast scheme of things, some things that I'm looking at as sort of being most impactful, and then we'll zoom in and I want to take a really close look at today and the last few days to see where we might be headed to end the week tomorrow and get the week started next week. Basically some shorter term trend and chart analysis. And then we'll do a quick look at the data and just sort of like get ourselves set on where we stand with the short interest and that sort of thing. So today we saw the volume come up quite a bit actually. We're still about 10 million under the average volume from the last 3 months, but obviously that coming in on a red day is not ideal. I would have liked to see that nice surge in volume coming in on a green day and sort of like proving the point that there's a lot of buying pressure still coming in to the market. Here you can see the zoom in on the volume and you see this blue line here and it's stretching, the volume stretching up over that yesterday and today. But that said, yesterday we clocked in under 30 million. Today we clocked in at almost 45 million. And, it was a big difference between the plus 6.35% that we had yesterday versus the minus 2.93. So yes, we had a better kick up yesterday than we had pullback today, but we saw, like I said, a solid increase in volume of about, right about 1.5 times the volume today of yesterday. But again, it came in as sell volumes. That's not super what I want to see, but also trying to keep things in perspective here, which is why I'm starting us off on the longer term zoomed out chart before we go into the micro chart. These are my price targets. So this is my lower sort of like 708 price zone to me would be a really good area that I would look to scoop up CLOV, because I don't see a world in which the market cap that it has at that price makes any sense based on the business and where they currently sit. Now, if something insane happens with, I don't know, more, I guess, accusations like we saw in the Hindenburg report, more investigations that yield something that actually looks like it's a downside to CLOV. If we have bad, earnings or unexpectedly bad earnings, things like that, then, maybe there would be sort of like a readjustment of those facts. But as it sits now, I don't see a world in which the market cap that it has below 708 makes sense. So to me, that's a really good scoop up zone. And right now we're at this, so most recent or most close-in support zone right here around 862, right where the price is sitting at the moment. And these three areas here aren't price targets. These are areas where I said we will catch some resistance. And so to me, this is why this isn't that big of a deal. We're still sitting at this 862 support. Okay, still holding that. We're still on, granted, it's a very short-term uptrend, but we're still on an uptrend here. We're making higher highs and higher lows. Also, it's pulling back after getting through this area where I thought that it would pull back anyway based on the previous price action. I said in the $9, in the $10, and in the $11 here we'll have the stickiness. Now we get over that, I think we actually skip the $12 mark and get ourselves to $13.25 before hitting our next area of resistance. Now I know that seems a little bit shoddy because I'm saying there's a stop every single dollar points along the way, but keep in mind CLOV's under $10. So if the stock is $10, the $1 price increase is a 10% jump. So it's a big, these are big percent moves between these zones. And also I'm not saying like all of $10 is sticky. I'm saying from like 10.01 or 10, I guess 10 even, all the way up to 10.13. So I'm just saying like the very beginnings of the $10. And then I say we have a pretty good run room to low to I guess closer to mid. Well, it's still pretty low, $11 mark, but then we have basically a $2 run room, which is a really big percentage jump up. So I don't want to overly, make this seem overly flowery because, we could certainly pull back here. We've seen nothing but pulling back for a very long time now, right, since February. And so I don't want to like overstate the case that we could be actually reversing trend here. But as we have to take the information that we have at the time that we have it. And right now I'm looking at 4 days of higher lows and 4 days of higher highs, and it hitting a red day off of a price zone that I thought would be resistance anyway. Now, the next thing that we're going to need it to do, if it's going to actually prove out that it does have some legs to this upward rally, is hold this 862 and make another attempt at this, low to mid $9 range and flip that from resistance to support. That gives to me the run room to push this over $10 and hit that next area of stickiness. Hitting the areas of stickiness are good. It's just you have to flip it from resistance to support. The good thing about once you flip it, obviously, is that if it was sticky resistance, it's going to be really sticky support. So you should have a strong level underneath you at that point that you can lean into as it sort of like takes these breaths or pulls back a little bit during an overall uptrend. Now let's zoom in a bit and take a look. I don't know if folks are interested to sort of see, but we can go through these really quickly on the macro chart. But bearish momentum still continuing to die down. So to me, again, still good. A good look here for a bullish crossover coming, and that will just add additional momentum. RSI still very, very low. The question here to me is, can this creep up? And as it does creep up, what does it do at the midline? I'm most interested to see what it does around this 54.55 mark on the RSI. Can it blow through that? To me, then that's its next big leg up as it jumps into the overbought territory. I had rejiggered these MAs in my last video. Let me just flip these to the longer term chart. So, nope, now I want this one, and this one. And so looking at these MAs, they're all bunching up. And so this will be another sort of like, I treat MAs like this as an indicator, essentially. As they're coiling up, they're essentially sort of like bunching together in their own sort of consolidation formation, which is just they're all layering on top of each other. When they make a sudden and relatively abrupt or chaotic looking move in one direction or another, that to me is a strong indication that that's our next trend. So if they start to unravel in a fully bearish formation, the 20 is under the 50, the 50 is under the 200, to me I'll be like, uh-oh, okay, there's more selling pressure coming here. If they unravel with the 20 on top, the 50 below it, and the 200 below that, in a really like nice jumping up, steep-ish formation, to me I'll be thinking, okay, there's a really solid buying pressure here. This could be the rally that we've been looking for. Maybe there's something more sustained. So that's what I'm looking for from the MAs, the MACD, and the RSI. Now let's zoom in to, let's just go to the 1 day today and sort of unpack what we're looking at. So like I said, we saw it push off of the blue zones here and establish itself along this. Oh, okay, it's 861. I had said 862 because I couldn't see it because the price was on top of it. Now, to me, what I'm going to be looking for is, can we get a bounce off of here? All right, bounce off of here. I use purple for potential bounces because of the double bottoming out here. So it made a run up, an attempt to get support at 861, which we would have anticipated because of the previous charting. Pushed off there, lost its support, so it treated it as resistance, but then it just came down just slightly above where it had been bought up before. So it's being bought up at slightly higher levels on the daily low. Now, that being the case, if the swing lows are making slightly higher lows, but are relatively in the same area, to me that could be a strong signal of a double bottom. But again, it has to get its support at this 861. It's running up nicely every time it's jumping off of this purple zone, but it's not being able to stick itself to this 861 and then stick itself on top of the 861 to give itself a jumping off point to make another run at this $9 plus level. So to me, that's what's most important. Now, the thing that you could be watching, and again, just keep in mind, this is a very young thing, so this might not evolve, but there is potentially a channel coming up here that it could hold if it can sort of do some additional tests of the top and bottom. Now that said, this is a very steep channel, so we may not see it necessarily break the channel. We might just see it kind of widen it out a little bit, where maybe the bottom zone comes down here and the top zone ends up here, and it looks something like this. But that'll sort of like evolve as we get through. But I would keep an eye on that to sort of see what this bottom trend line does that you can see there. If we sort of compare this to the last few days, which we know we've had several green ones, this is what I had mentioned. Somebody had said the other day about all the knows that I put in. I had never noticed that verbal tick of mine, but I will try to pay attention to it. I just heard it. I said it like 2 or 3 times in a row. Anyway, we had been in this channel that I was looking at, and when we made this big move up, I said, just be careful. A lot of times we see these come down, and we see them, go, we see them go ahead and come back into the channel, or at least come back down and test the upper bound of the channel to either confirm that it's going to reject the channel and stay out of it, or re-enter. And we did see it re-enter. And obviously, when it's making that kind of a movement, it's doing so because of a pretty significant sell-off that occurs. And so I would watch that pretty carefully, but that purple bounce that we see is also in alignment with this 5-day, 5-minute channel that we have in place here that is now, if we want to consider that it left it and came back into it, could be holding it for about its 4th day. And if it can continue to establish in here, I do think that this is sort of the nice, consistent uptrend that I would like to see it settle into. And I guess I wouldn't mind if there were some bursts out of it, if that could then establish, because I do think that it's so overly sold off and so undervalued that it deserves a higher price point just as a floor. That said, if it were to get there more slowly and securely, then I would take that as well. It is an interesting kind of double U-shaped pattern here, which could lead us to a nice price strength in the future. And being that this area has stretched up so high here, I think that we are probably out of the range of being concerned for something of like an immediate head and shoulders forming. That said, I would look for, in case it does this again, this could be the left shoulder, or I guess if you're looking at it, the left shoulder, and then the head could be forming here. So I would just be cautious of that and see what it does. If it does come down here and test the bottom of the channel again, what does that next sort of rollover look like? On the indicator side of things for this shorter term chart, on the MACD, we are sort of threatening a bearish crossover here, not able to get a ton of bullish momentum going, obviously, after this big area. This was yesterday, like I said, where there was that indication that a director, I think, on the inside was buying something like 220,000 shares. That's going off memory, so double check that if you really want the stats. But we do see the bullish momentum dying down here quite a bit. So we'll have to see again, and it's dying down right at that 861 level. So I want to see it hold that, or at a bare minimum come down here into like the 840s, 850s, and test the bottom of the channel at the very, very lowest point that we would look for. On the RSI side of things, it did make a nice push up toward overbought, but now is pulling back to the midline. Now this is where we could see an attempt toward overbought, pull back to the midline, and then another attempt at overbought, hopefully at that point securing overbought status and taking a breath then back down to the midline again, and then just running itself back up to overbought. That to me is when you see something that's actually showing a more sustained level of interest in buying pressure, buying power. Now, if we flip over here quickly to the data, we did see shorts peel off a little bit today per Ortex. That said, still over 20% of the free float being shorted, and that is very, very high, as you know. So to the extent to which there can be sideways movement, there can be at least recovery from sell-offs, from the pressure that's being exerted by the shorts, that could then stumble us into territory where we force some of them to close prematurely or close in an upside down position where they don't want to be. And I don't necessarily want to say effectuate a full-on squeeze, because I don't think that we're there yet. I don't think that all of the chess pieces are in place for that. But we could see something sort of like a premature kind of run-up that gets kicked off just by nature of length of days, time spent, and borrow fee, and being upside down, I should say, on the position. I didn't have Swaggy up here, but if you're not familiar or you didn't see today, CLOV occupying the #1 spot on Wall Street bets per the comment volume, almost 20% of the comment volume, which is very, very high. 194 positive sentiment comments versus 55 negative sentiment comments. So they're pretty bullish over there at Wall Street bets, and as we know, they have a tendency to come in strong. The question I always have is the stickiness of those things. Are they just really short-lived kind of rallies and run-ups, and then the interest quickly fades? I would like to see some of that more sticky volume come into play and see those bulls kind of stay around a bit longer. And again, for me, it's because I have these longer-term upward price targets, because I think that there's a business case to be made and a market case to be made for where CLOV is versus where its competitors are, and the business of each of those players, and where it should be sitting versus where it is sitting. So we'll see what that plays in the days ahead, but more to come. All right, well, thanks a bunch for watching. I hope you finish off the week strong tomorrow. I certainly wish you the best, and I will see you in the next video.